All right. We are at the warehouse. Here's Jason. Hey, Jason.
Oh, yeah. I was just talking about you.
Yeah?
I
What are
was
you
just telling
saying?
Belle that this should be your job. Why am I washing old eggs?
This should be my job.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is this
Have
colorful?
you ever seen these?
I don't know if I've ever actually seen one in person.
So, I just got all these eggs back from a friend of mine who was actually the guy who does some of our graphic design on the website. Not exactly the graphic design, but he helps design like all those images that we have of eggs that look like beautiful stacks of eggs. Those were all done virtually. Those aren't, I mean, they're designed from real eggs, but those aren't actual eggs and all those impossible structures. So my friend Robert had all these eggs that we were using to get the colors. Anyway, he just gave them back. But he has had eggs since I first started making them, which I didn't realize. And so he gave me, first of all, he gave me like, these are the original prototypes. This was the first egg I ever made. I had 50, no, I had 150 of these made. Yeah, I had 150 of these made.
Oh my gosh.
They don't even have logos on them. The first 150 were sold without logos. If you watch our first video with Daniel that was filmed in my house, that was filmed with these eggs that have no logos on them. And you can just see like the shape's it's a little different. I mean, the basic shape's the same.
Look at the shape.
But look at how refined it is here.
Yeah.
Like this is a new one. This is the old one.
Yeah, let me get it. Yeah. So sorry,
Okay.
everybody. My hands are shaking. I've had a lot of coffee today. Maybe I should.
Yeah, don't drink
stabilize
coffee
my-
and then sneak up on me with a camera.
Right.
All right.
Good plan. Look at the shape. Yeah.
So
look at the
anyway,
difference.
so this is the first one. Then look at the second one. Like look at this shape. See how pointy the ends are?
Yeah.
Right? And then these were made in China. The red one's made in the USA. Everything's made in the USA now, which is so much better. But so this is the first round. It wasn't really too bad. This is the second round. It got worse. And then what happened was the machine broke while they were halfway through a run one time. Okay, well, let me back up. This was the original logo. So like if you look at,
Yeah, you see that logo?
yeah, if you look at it, so, you know, I mean, it's fine. It's got the elements of the logo now, but it's really boring when you compare it to this one, you know.
Yeah, there's that
Like,
one.
look at how beautiful this is.
It's the whole logo
So-
is on the shape of the egg.
But the original logo is from my friend Tanya, and the elements are still there. You know, if you look at it, I mean, the elements are still there. It's just it's been refined and made to take up the whole thing. This was Anthony's idea, my designer Anthony from Akio. He said that the logo should be like a part of the egg, that it shouldn't just be on the egg, but it should look and feel like it's an actual part of the structure, which I thought was a really cool idea. And then we spent hours going over this and driving each other nuts. Anthony is such a good designer, and we fight like an old married couple whenever we work together.
Good for the creative process.
Yeah, it's really cool. When we're done, it's always worth it.
Yeah.
But in the process, he's always like, why did I take this job for Jason? But I won't let him not work for me. And he's a great guy. He always says it. So then we made 2,000 of these. So the first 2,000 eggs that we sold after the first like 150, which were basically prototypes, after the first 2,000 that we sold like this, then we started changing the logo. And then, so I found this other box. I started cleaning this. I went through and just found all these old
Ooh,
eggs.
look at
'Cause
that
I keep them for
color.
sort of like, I don't know, partially because I'm a little bit of a hoarder, but mostly I'm more of an emotional hoarder. Like, I don't like to have stuff, but I like to have things that have meaning to me. And this is like the history of the eggs here, you know?
That's so cool.
So this is powder blue. We don't even have this color anymore. This is Dijon the way it was supposed to look. Like, look at how green that is. I like that green. And then over time, it's become yellow, which I don't really like as much, so we discontinued the Dijon. I loved it when it was greenish, but I don't love it now that it's yellowish. And it happened so slowly that I didn't even notice it. But in China, when you make things in China, and I hate to say this as a generality, but in my experience, making things in China was a nightmare. And, you know, I even went there and worked in the factory side by side with all the workers for 6 weeks in a row. I mean, to be fair, I took 10 days off and went to Thailand because they closed the entire country of China. But apart from that, I was there every day working with them, and I would teach them how to do something in the morning. They would understand it by the end of the afternoon, and then when I came the next morning and they'd already been working for a few hours, they'd found some new way to fuck things up, and it was so exhausting. So I was very happy to move my manufacturing to the U.S., where at least if they make a mistake, I can talk to them about it in English.
Right.
In China it was tough. I mean, I had an engineer that I worked with. He's wonderful. His name is York. He did his best. But it just, you know, he would tell me, he's like, Jason, I'm dealing with people who don't have an education like that. You're not going to be happy with this. And he was right. I wasn't. But anyway, look at the shape of this Dijon egg. Like, look at how messed up that is.
It looks
Okay.
squished.
Yeah, it's squished. It's like, it's not even. And there's also like, okay, so this is a different shape than this, right?
Right.
And they sent me these. I mean, this one's obviously from an older order, but they sent me like this and this in the same box. So what happened was they were being made like this. They had these really pointy edges, which was nice for wedging, but for everything else, it's not so nice. It's not stable enough. Like, and it's not comfortable in the hand. Like, if you look at the new ones now, it has a much more bulbous end. So when you're leaning on it like this, like if you're leaning forward and you have your hand on it, it nestles really nicely in the heel palm area of the hand. So you really don't want this sharp edge anymore.
Right.
But anyway, they sent me these in the same box. And I went back to them the next time I was in China, and I brought them samples, and I was like, these are different shapes. And they said, no, they're not. They're the same. I said, they're not the same, and I don't understand how you made eggs that are two completely different shapes. And they were like, they're the same. Everybody was telling me they're the same. And I was like, they're not the same. Don't lie to me. What the hell happened?
Yeah.
And then after I insisted, then the factory told my engineer, he said, oh, well, the machine broke or the jig broke that we made. And so we made a new jig. And when we set it up, we couldn't set it up the same way. We couldn't get it to match. So we just made them and decided it was close enough.
Close enough.
Like,
we don't do close enough at
no,
Very
we do not do close enough very gracefully. So, yeah, it was nuts. So there was a time when I had eggs in my warehouse. In the box, some said pointed ends and some said rounded ends.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
that. Yeah. So there were two totally different products, and we made sure that somebody bought them, they got pointed or rounded. They didn't get one of each.
Right.
And now we don't have that problem. Now everything is made perfectly. Like even this one, this was sort of the new design. This was made in China, and this was the new design. It's a more bulbous end, but you can see this line right here. Like if you can see this point, okay, that's where the jig let go. Like I went to China. I made a bunch of these by myself on the machines. I spent 2 days realigning the machine and getting it as close as I could. And this one isn't quite right. I don't know how we ended up with it. Like the edge is flat.
It's really flat.
This might be from a different shipment. But the way that thing worked is it was this weird cam jig, and it was on a grinding wheel. And if you moved it too fast, you got. Can you see these lines? If you moved it too fast, you'd get these lines. If you moved it, yeah, you moved it too fast, you get these lines. And the faster you moved it, the farther apart the lines were. You had to move it really slow and steady to get a clean swipe on it. So anyway, we did away with all that old technology. I'm not going to explain how we do it here, but we do it perfectly. That's all I can tell you. We just do. We have, you know, there's always problems in manufacturing, but we do not have these kinds of problems. Anyway, I don't know. This is just such a trip down memory lane. I mean, to see colors that I don't make anymore.
Yeah.
To see, like, you know, sort of a bulbous point. Just none of these two eggs are the same shape. I mean, look at this. None of them are the same. And it kills me that we sold these for years. We didn't know. We didn't know until I get a shipment. Every time I got a shipment, it was like opening a mystery box.
Yeah, I remember
And
that.
I didn't know what the set of problems was going to be, and I had to come up with a new solution to solve whatever new problems came, because I had a container filled with problems.
Right.
And there's still a usable product, but it's not like now. Now everything is so dialed in. Like, we go to such lengths to make sure that when somebody buys eggs, that the experience of the eggs they buy is extremely consistent. You know, and there's just a lot that can go wrong. They can be different densities. They can be different thicknesses. When I made them in China, they were different heights this way. And so I developed a jig to measure this distance. So when you were laying down on them, you know, one wasn't significantly shorter than the other. I mean, look at, here's two eggs. Look at how different they are in height.
In height, and that's important,
You know?
yeah, when you're doing supported fish pose.
Yeah, if you're lying down on eggs, you want them to be the same size. Look at how big the difference used to be. Like,
Yeah,
there's
that's
an
pretty
example.
dramatic.
That's a dramatic difference. So if you were laying down, imagine on these two eggs next to each other, this one is a 1/4 inch higher than this one under your back. Now, with the eggs that are made in the U.S., Every single one of them is exactly the same size. Look at that. It's perfect.
Yep.
And that's
awesome.
true every time. So every egg will be exactly the same size. You never have that problem again now that we make them in the U.S.
So
It doesn't matter if you buy them this year or 5 years from now or, how was it, 4 years ago when we started making them here. The size is the size, this is the size, and it doesn't vary. So we've solved a lot of problems by moving our manufacturing here. But I just decided to clean all these because, well,
Because you found them,
because
or no, because you got them
I'm
from
neurotic,
Robert.
and I just thought
Yeah.
they should be clean. But these are this is like my little egg museum. You can look in here. This is Adil Palkivala. He's one of my favorite yoga teachers and a mentor and a friend. And he's one of the first, and he's one of the first 4 people I ever did a signature egg with. So I did signature eggs with Adil Palkivala, Annie Carpenter, Jason Crandall, and Joan White. And Adil was the first person I asked, and he said yes immediately because he's very generous, and also he loves the eggs. And in fact, when we were you can see this number 2. That number 2 is like, Jason, do you like this design? Or there might be like something with the number 1 on it. I probably don't have it anymore. But there was another one that had his name stamp or something that had number 1. Is like, do you like this design or that design? I remember being in Florida, visiting my grandmother, freaking out, having to make this decision. And then I finally made the decision, and they had like the China Games, which was like the Olympics, but only for China. And they shut the entire country down for 14 days.
Wow.
So when I finally made the decision about what eggs to get and what shape I wanted, they shut the factory down because the government shut the factory down. And that's because every factory there uses coal in order to fuel themselves. In fact, I have video somewhere of my factory with some guy shoving coal into an oven to create energy for the factory at the factory. Just like imagine being on a train and there's some guy shoveling coal in the train. He was shoveling coal into an oven to fire up all the energy that the factory needed. They made their own energy at this
Wow.
factory. Yeah.
And that was that guy's job.
That was that guy's job.
That's what he did all day.
It was awful.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
I mean, it was horrible. The air there was so bad.
I bet.
My friend Mark Bloom, I took him over to China with me when I went there for 6 weeks because I knew I was going to need emotional support. He was like my emotional support friend. And I just knew that it was going to be so traumatic for me being there, A, for 6 weeks, and B, just fighting with the factory every day because I knew what I was getting myself into. It wasn't my first time dealing with him, and I worked in the factory, and Mark, bless his heart, worked in that factory with me every day for the 6 weeks, except the 10 days that I took him to Thailand and we partied.
Aw.
Yeah. That was
Thanks,
really
Mark.
fun.
So let's talk about Made in
yeah,
USA.
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Okay.
So it sounds like there's many reasons why you decided to move production. to
There's
the
a lot of
United
reasons
States.
I moved production here. A big one is, well, the number one was quality. I could not control the quality
Right.
in China,
Right.
and I'm very meticulous about my quality control. And I was meticulous even with the stuff we made from China, but I controlled the variables I could control. But when I moved it here, I made sure that the variables that really gave me trouble in China, that we were able to kind of harness them here and not have the same problems here that we had there.
Yeah.
And so the problems that we had there, we had huge density variables, huge density. Like there'd be 2 purple eggs, and one would be as hard as our hard-boiled eggs that are gray, and the Chinese hard-boiled, which is like it's still pretty hard, but not quite as hard as our U.S.
U.S.
hard-boiled.
hard-boiled, yeah.
And our U.S. hard-boiled is like, I don't know, it's not, I wouldn't call it as hard as a rock, but it's almost as hard as a piece of wood, except over time it'll soften a little bit, wood won't. You would have a purple one that was like that, and you'd have a purple one that you could squeeze, like squish
Like
your
squish,
hands
like
into.
squishy
Do you remember, were you
sponge.
working for me when we had those?
I remember that. I also
Yeah.
remember getting a bunch of slate gray that were supposed to be hard-boiled that were
Right.
soft,
Yeah.
straight up
So
soft.
here's what happened with that. We had a density checker. Let's see if I have it. Do we still have one of those?
Yeah, we do. It's in a gray or
gray
black box. What is that black box?
This is black. This was.
Yeah.
Is this the new one? Okay. So this tests density on the eggs, and so when I was in China for 6 weeks, I produced a container of eggs for Finland when they took over European. So that's 9,000 eggs for Finland, 9,000 eggs for the U.S., and 2,600 eggs for Yoga Fit. And every single one of those eggs got pressure tested by my engineer, York.
Wow.
That poor guy. So what we would do is we would take it and you'd put it on the edge here, and that tells you how hard the egg is. And you test it in a few places because foam is funky. It'll give you a different measurement depending on where you look. This one's 42, 43, 40 there, but mostly 42, 43. You got to check both sides. So that's in the zone, right? That's a couple, whatever this measures, that's a couple units off. But this one, like, okay, here's one, like about 44 there. This is about the same as itself, right? But this is a hard-boiled egg, old school.
Old school.
If we look at a hard-boiled egg now, let's see.
Boxes of eggs everywhere.
This is one of those weird. Okay, so this is a hard-boiled egg now, and the density is almost 60.
Yeah, big difference.
Right? Yeah. And this is a little on the soft side. These are like these weird juniors that had a problem.
Yeah, right.
These are going back to the factory. All these boxes are going back to the factory. The nice thing about my factory here, they don't love to do it, but if something doesn't work, they take it back and they refund my money. In China, there's no shipping something back to China that doesn't work. You know, here you go. Here's one over 60.
Over 60.
This is how hard a hard. And by the way, you know, the longer you leave it here, the more it's going to go down because the foam starts to depress under here.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to go by your first impression. And for a long time, they were measuring it here, which if you look is harder. The surface is harder because of the way the foam is made. So the foam is, this part of the foam is always softer than this part of the foam. And they were testing these on here, but this measurement doesn't matter to me because this isn't experientially where you feel the egg. You feel the egg here.
It's not weight bearing. Yeah, right.
This is the part that's in your hand or under your back.
Yep, yep.
So
yeah, so it's kind of fun to share a little bit of our like QC process here, as well as the evolution of the eggs.
Well, we don't. The best part about this, we don't have to do this anymore.
That's exactly.
You know, now the fact, I check it every now and then just to make sure things are in order. But our factory now has, maybe like a 5-unit variance on an egg, so these are our multi-purpose eggs, and they're very rarely outside of that 5.
As far as density?
Yeah, as far as density goes. And again, you can test it here, and it'll be 2 or 3 off from here. So as long as they're in the zone, that's fine. But we check them to make sure. And occasionally we'll get a batch of foam that just feels a little on the hard side.
Yeah, we still check.
So we separate those, and for people who are buying hard eggs and soft eggs, we know what we have, and we'll send them slightly softer ones.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how nuts we are about this. But
there's a reason. Like you were showing the difference in the variation of the size. Not that we have that issue anymore, but who knows, what'll show up, and we just want to know we're sending out a consistent product.
Whenever we solve one problem, I start looking for the next one. And
yeah.
It's just part of refining our process so that everything is as good and consistent as it can be. And I feel very, very good about the product.
It's so good, yeah. So
I mean, if you compare this egg, which is, one of our new, and these are eco eggs.
Yep.
That's the other thing. Okay, so now that I make the eggs in the U.S., they're made out of a biodegradable foam. And if you pick up the two, this is not an eco egg. If you pick up these two, you cannot see or feel they used to smell different. But that's just when they come, right?
Yeah, they just smell different. Now I'm used to the smell.
I mean, if you cut them open, you might smell the difference. So, but it wasn't like it was a problem smell, but it was just noticeable, like the eco eggs had a different odor to them. These eggs are 100% biodegradable in a landfill setting. So they won't biodegrade on your yoga mat. They won't photodegrade if you leave it in the back of your car. It's only the bacteria that exists in a landfill setting comes in and eats up the foam and helps it biodegrade faster. So that's the other thing. I could never have made eco eggs in China, although I've heard and read that this is a cross-link foam, which means they take 2 different chemicals and cross-link it. The advantage to that is it's very long-lasting. The disadvantage to that is they can't be recycled. And so that's why making it biodegradable is so important. But these things last forever, so you're not going to be recycling anytime soon. It's not like a plastic bag or a bottle that is designed for single use. These are designed to be used forever. But what you want when they're done is that they could actually biodegrade quickly. Mm-hmm. And so they're making these ones in Asia out of rice husk and traditional foam. But it's because it's cross-linked, even though it's made out of rice husk, maybe 30% of this thing will biodegrade in the landfill, but the other 70% won't. So you really have to do your research when you're finding out what makes something an eco-friendly product or not. You know, and this foam is the right substance to make these eggs out of. If I thought it was better to make them out of anything else, I would. But if they're made out of wood, they're too slippery. If they're made out of cork, they're too heavy and slippery. So the foam is really like, you can get the right density so it's comfortable and supportive. And we can control the density of foam. I mean, you can make foam any density you want. So we get really hard ones for the weight-bearing postures for the hard-boiled eggs. And then we get, you know, reasonably soft ones for the restorative stuff so that they're comfortable. Soft enough to be comfortable, but not so soft that they're squishy. And we don't have this problem. They don't lose their shape anymore. A new egg will not end up looking like this. You know, this is an old Chinese egg, and who knows how this happened. But that won't happen anymore. If you look at your old Chinese eggs, I bet they look like this, and I'm sorry.
Cool. So we have making them in the U.S. allows us to have better quality, more consistent quality and density, as well as being eco-friendly.
Yes. And you're made in the U.S. So, I mean, yeah. I don't know if there's a single other yoga company that makes their yoga blocks in the U.S. Not one. I am pretty sure we're the only one. And everyone talks about how important that is to them. So we're doing it. You know, so I remember when I started, someone's like, it'd be really great if you could make these in the U.S. and out of biodegradable material. I was like, you are dreaming. That'll never happen. If I could do it, I would. And now look at me. You know, however many years later, they're made in the U.S. and they're biodegradable. I mean, I couldn't be prouder.
So cool. Well, this is really fun to like kind of go through some of the history of the eggs. Yeah. And look at all these pretty colors.
You know what else
colors
I
we
like?
Don't make anymore.
This is ridiculous, but these are our old boxes.
Yeah.
These are our made in China boxes.
Vintage box.
And if you just look at how crappy the cardboard is,
yeah,
it's just awful.
Even our boxes are better.
Even the boxes, and this is like, so this is York's system of saying what it was. So you can see like there's Chinese writing on here. I don't know what 153 to 168 means. Oh, I think it's box 153 out of 168 boxes. Of slate gray. That's probably what that was. There were 12 pieces. I mean, York is the best. I love York. He came and visited me in the U.S. I think last Christmas, right after I got Bell. Anyway, if you compare that box, let me see the 12 egg box. Where are the 12 egg boxes? I probably could have done this in an easier way. Wouldn't that be great if I fell off the scaffolding?
For the live video? That would not be good.
You notice Belle isn't following me up here today?
No, she's not running right up there with you. But she is keeping a good eye on you. Good girl, Belle.
I love the staircase. Our neighbors at the warehouse have given me this on a permanent loan. Cool. Okay, so this is the new box. First of all, how pretty is that?
It's beautiful.
Compared to the ugly brown ones. And just the quality. Probably nobody cares about this but me. But the quality of the cardboard is even better. So, cool. All right. So that's that. Are we done?
We're done. Thank you, Jason.
All right.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.